Hey everyone, RogueGold here, and today I want to look towards the future a bit. It's no shock that my mind has been on the idea and promise of The Division 3 as of late. If you've watched some of my recent videos, I made this one a few weeks back talking about how the game is very soon going to be finally entering full production, with the release of Star Wars Outlaws coming in just over a month. I'll link that below in case you missed it and want further details there. But because the game is now closer to being a reality than ever before, soon it will actually be getting worked on and being built. I've been thinking a lot about how that's going to happen and what upgrades we might see from a technical perspective, right? When The Division 2 was in its full swing of development back around 2017, the Xbox One and the PS4 were still the premier pieces of console hardware. Compared to these days, those things seem ancient. And so not only does The Division 3 have the opportunity to take advantage of the next generation of hardware, maybe even the next gen depending on when it comes out, and not only have there been countless upgrades and optimizations made to Massive's Snowdrop engine, the engine originally made for the Division IP in the recent years, but today I want to spotlight and talk about a new category of technology entirely that Ubisoft has been developing for a little while now. One that, when I first talked about it here on the channel a few years ago, we didn't even know at that time that the Division 3 was going to be a thing. So today I want to circle back to the topic, explain what the technology is, speculate on how it could be implemented into the Division 3 and what that might mean for us in gameplay, and really just cover everything there is to with Ubisoft's Scalar. So without further ado, let's get right to it. Alright, so this is a big concept to fully encompass, and to make matters worse, you've got me trying to break it down for you. Now, I try my best to do my research, stay informed on what I'm talking about, but I'm no game developer. And what Ubisoft Scalar is a very innovative technological proposal that would truly change how game developers go about making their games, specifically large, live, and simulated worlds like that of The Division. So, to begin explaining this, I want to play this quick 2-minute sizzle that Ubisoft released about the tech 2 years ago when Scalar was announced in March of 2022. Now, normally I would try and just integrate this into my whole spiel instead of just playing you a video within a video, but for those of us, myself included, who don't make games and who don't know jack when it comes to all of this stuff, I think this little trailer does a really excellent job in explaining what Scalar is, why it needs to be made, and what its potential is. So the full link to this trailer will be down in the description if you want to check it out for yourself, but let's take a look. Please don't copyright strike me, Ubi.
Over the course of their history, video games have evolved to bring more and more players into worlds where they can experience new adventures. Step by step, game makers have taken advantage of incremental improvements in technology to push the boundaries of what is possible, always dreaming of bigger and more interactive game worlds, yet always being limited by the computing power at their disposal. What if we could make this limitation a thing of the past? Games are powered by engines. The bigger and deeper games have become, the more complex the engines. Animation, sound, rendering, physics, gameplay, and many more systems are crammed into the engine in very static ways, making major changes increasingly difficult. Our approach is different. We are setting game makers free from the restrictions of single machine computing, transforming these engine systems into distributed services and allowing them to harness vast amounts of processing power in the cloud. This enables the construction of gigantic game worlds at a scale far greater than anything that has come before. This technology is built to power the game worlds of tomorrow. To bring them to life, it supports massive numbers of game assets, simulations, AI and player entities. And because the dreams of players and game makers are constantly evolving, this technology is made to evolve alongside them, updating constantly and adding more capabilities as they are needed without interrupting play. Imagine a game world, vast, rich and fully simulated, populated by an unlimited number of players, all sharing and shaping a single reality together. Not long ago, this could only have been a dream. Today, we are building the technology to make this happen. Introducing Ubisoft Scalar.
Alright, so hopefully you found that to be a good intro into this whole discussion. Like I said, I thought it did an excellent job overviewing everything, and hopefully you can begin to see how, yeah, this tech could be exactly that kind of thing that the developers of The Division could utilize to truly bring us that next-gen, next-level experience. Now, back when this trailer, sizzle, whatever you want to call it, was released, Ubisoft also put out an article that went into some greater detail about Scalar as a whole, and so I want to parse through it and share some quotes that I think expand on the specific benefits of this tech, and how it might feasibly fit into The Division 3's development. We're not going to read every single thing from here, so again, the full link will be down in the description. I highly recommend you check it out, but it opens with two pretty relevant paragraphs, so let me read those. Over time, game developers have pushed the boundaries of what's possible, but no matter what someone can dream, there is always a limit when it comes to computing power on local hardware. As games become more complex, the engines needed to build them do too. The result is an increasingly complex set of interconnected, moving gears that are exponentially more difficult to update and improve. What if those component game engine parts weren't interlocking gears, but could be separated, iterated on, and tested entirely independent of one another? Those are the questions Ubisoft Stockholm set out to answer when they began development on Ubisoft Scalar. Ubisoft Scalar is a foundational technology that enables Ubisoft titles to utilize the power of the cloud to ensure that developers aren't limited by time or hardware, but by their imaginations. The result could enable game worlds that are bigger, more social, and richer than anything that's ever been seen before at Ubisoft. So just in those two quotes alone, I myself already see several direct correlations to The Division and its development. For one, the notion of how over time, as these live service games are updated, iterated, and worked on over periods of years, they become more complex. You're building system on top of feature over a hotfix, and all it can take is one little crack in the foundation to see it all tumble down, as we've seen happen more than once with The Division 2. So if all of those elements could be individually extracted, tested in isolation, and not be beholden to one another's limitations, that could be big. Then it goes on to talk about the potential of Scalar's implementation, creating bigger and more social worlds than ever. That's right up Division's alley. And the part about how the whole point of Scalar is that its goal is to make it so that game developers aren't restricted by the hardware they're developing for, and in theory can go as far as their imaginations do. To me, that sounds daringly similar to the infamous Division 1 reveal trailer all the way back from E3 2013. For those who don't know or weren't around, Division 1's original vision in terms of graphics, game systems, open world concept, everything, was much, much greater than what the hardware of that generation ended up allowing them to be able to do. But if an innovation like Scalar allowed the devs to forego the usual considerations, like we can't make the world look too good or it might crash the console, or we can't have too many players in one place or the lag will spike like crazy, that could open up a ton of possibilities, and dare I say, might make it so that original 2013 vision could finally become a reality. Maybe. The article goes on to make one important distinction, I think, between cloud-streamed games versus cloud-computed games. Let me read from this excerpt. The interviewer asks, when we talk about the cloud, people often associate that with streaming games, but that's not what we're talking about with Ubisoft Scalar, right? And then one of the developers on the project responds with, exactly, it can be confusing, but we're not talking about game streaming. It's the difference between cloud streaming and cloud computing. Cloud streaming is a distribution model. It improves people's access to games, but it doesn't change, in essence, what games are or the quality of them. The game is still being run on a single processing machine placed remotely and then streamed via the cloud to your screen. It's a bit like if you had a console placed very far away and your internet connection is replacing a very long HDMI cable to your TV. What Ubisoft Scalar is focused on is cloud computing. Cloud computing, what Ubisoft Scalar enables, means the processing power for a game isn't tied to a single machine, but a decentralized computation system. The processing is taking place in the cloud. This eliminates the limits of local hardware for players, improving the quality of games, and opens up new possibilities for game developers. So, this is an important distinction for them to make, I feel, because streaming games via the cloud is still a relatively new concept. I know Microsoft has their version of it for Xbox, I'm sure others do as well. And while it works, and it's great to allow more people to access awesome games, it does infamously come with some pretty poor connection issues, a good bit of lag, both input-based and game-based, so it's not yet a perfected tech. But cloud computing isn't actually entirely brand new. In fact, it's something, to my knowledge, which I state again, I'm no game dev expert, feel free to correct me, but I'm fairly certain this is in the same category. It's something that both the Division 1 and 2 already use to a certain extent. For example, with enemy AI. Division is famous for having pretty damn good enemy AI, with how they strategize, how they interact within their units, how they react to player actions. So in order to fully support that, enemy AI is handled in the cloud instead of on the piece of hardware that you're playing the game on, whether it be console, PC, whatever. That's why if you've ever experienced a lag stall within the game, I'm sure there's a better term than that for it, but if you start to lose connection, the first thing you'll notice is that enemies will stop moving or acting altogether, and that's because their functionality is entirely tied to the cloud. The game will still let you walk around for a few moments, and then your game crashes altogether. But on the other hand, plenty within the Division 1 and 2 is handled directly on your hardware. Another pretty well-known example, player counts within the Dark Zones. Part of the reason why they decreased the cap from 24 to 12 in the DZ from the Division 1 to 2 was because with the Division 2's increased lighting fidelity and the increased amount of player customization leading to more detail, textures, and more on each player, it meant that the last-gen hardware of the Xbox One and the PS4, they couldn't handle more than 12, maybe 16 players in one location. The game would simply crash. But imagine if with Scalar, they could transfer lighting, player rendering, all of it onto the cloud, and eliminate those restrictions. The devs could then, in theory, make the player counts as high as they want. 24, 48, 100, 500, the sky's the limit if all goes to plan here. They elaborate on that part further in this next quote right here. It will become possible to have more players in a single shared world, which I think will introduce new social experiences that we haven't seen before. You can also create world simulations on a scale and to a complexity that we've never seen before. When you add that on to one of the pillars and strengths of Ubisoft, building worlds, it allows us to build bigger and richer worlds for players to experience. We're able to push the boundaries of what games can be. It's a new challenge for game designers, and it's going to lead to new experiences. And I think this lends directly into what a lot of players have expressed interest in seeing as the Division franchise continues to grow and expand. We want more locations, give us multiple cities to travel between. We want more player interactions, allow us to run into agents out in the open world, other dynamic social events. This could be the key to all of that. Alright, and then shifting towards the end here, they go into how exactly Ubisoft Scalar fits into the development of Ubisoft's future games, and who exactly the tech will be available to. The interviewer asks, is Ubisoft Scalar a game engine? They answer, the simple answer is no. Ubisoft Scalar is a technology that can work in concert with our existing game engines such as Anvil and Snowdrop to open up new possibilities. And so, this is key. For anyone who doesn't know, Snowdrop is the engine that the Division 1 and 2 were built on. It was originally created specifically for the Division 1, as I mentioned earlier. And ever since the franchise's technological success, Ubisoft has begun rolling out that engine to many of their studios and games worldwide. But they say right there in that quote, Scalar doesn't replace Snowdrop, nor interrupt it in any way. Rather, it's an additional component that can be added to open up all new possibilities. And that leads us into our final quote. The interviewer says, when can we see a game developed with Ubisoft Scalar? And they state, Ubisoft Scalar is a central technology available to all Ubisoft studios. It's being spearheaded by Ubisoft Stockholm in collaboration with studios Ubisoft Massive, Ubisoft Red Links, Ubisoft Bucharest, and Ubisoft Kyiv. A few interesting notes there. For one, 3 out of the 5 studios listed are currently working on The Division 2. Massive, of course, leads the project and leads the franchise. Ubisoft Bucharest is the main workforce for the new development team in place since 2021. And as we covered just a few days ago, Ubisoft Red Links has now dedicated a portion of their studio to the game. The article does state that the leads of the Scalar project is Ubisoft Stockholm, and so I found it slightly ironic that I just happened to watch Massive's latest vlog on their channel where they showed that them and Stockholm had a joint summer celebration in Malmo. So I'd wager the two studios are pretty tight-knit, and it wouldn't shock me at all if the idea has already been floated to incorporate Scalar into The Division 3, given just how many relevant aspects it would stand to benefit, based off of everything we've gone over in this video. The video and article we looked at today came out close to 2.5 years ago, as I previously noted in March of 2022, so now that we're into the back half of 2024, I would imagine they've made a lot of progress, if not gotten the tech to a place where it might be ready to be used in a big AAA game that's soon going to be going into development. I wonder what that might be. Alright, well this video is already getting long. I think the point has been made here. Ubisoft has this Scalar technology somewhere out there in the ether. It sounds like it would be the perfect fit for the Division franchise, and I've got hopes that with the Division 3 going into motion quite soon here, it might take advantage of this big leap in tech. My friends, that is everything I've got for you today from this one. Very much hope you enjoyed it. I figured this topic would be of interest to at least a good amount of you. I know my mind starts going wild with the possibilities of what Scalar could enable for the Division, so I'm anxious to hear any and all thoughts you may have on the subject down below. What do you think of Scalar as a standalone piece of tech? Do you think it's possible for it to be used in the Division 3? As always, whatever you've got, I look forward to reading through it. If you did enjoy the video and you want to stay in the loop with all cool future things for the Division like this, then I would appreciate you clicking that subscribe button if you haven't already. But that is going to do it for me today, everybody. Thank you all so much for watching. I'll see you in the next one. RogueGold. Out.